All right. So in the last session, I talked about Asar, Aset, and Heru. So in this session, I want to talk about Set. But in order to talk about Set, I have to talk about Asar and Heru and a few other Neteru. So Set or Setesh represents the principle of separation and opposition and challenge, right? He is the force that opposes, and that's not an evil thing per se. He's misrepresented as a god of evil, but that's not really what he represents. He represents an opposing force, stress in a certain thing, and stress or all of those different characteristics can be a good thing. In a way, you can say that Set represents the ruler of the outer court. In that is your survival instincts, which includes your battle prowess as well as your sex drive. Even you could even say it's your immune system. In that, when you look at the depiction, Set, wherever Set is presented, is an area that is being separated. He's the line of distinction between two things. So when you look at the depiction of Ra on his journey, Set is on the outermost part of the boat, drawing a line. He is separating the inside of the boat from the serpents that are trying to get into the boat. And I'll get to the serpents and a pep in another session. So Set represents separation. This is the principle by which Satan originated. And understanding Set puts Satan in right context in that upon Heru defeating Set, so Set killed Asar, Heru avenged his father Asar by defeating Set. They fought a few times. The first time, Heru lost the fight because Set is a fighter. That's the principle. And Heru ended up losing one of his eyes. He was later given that eye by another Neteru, and we'll get to that later. And that eye is what some people consider the third eye. I prefer the term first eye. But it really just represents seeing from your spirit, seeing from above. That you should never be fighting your adversary on equal grounds. You should always be above him. That you never fight on an even playing field. You always take the high ground. That the only way to overcome your enemy or to overcome a challenge or an obstacle is to be above it. So that's really what you get when you look at that narrative. So one of the things that I've loved is that in representing a principle of dominion within the Kemetic culture, they use what is known as a was staff or a was scepter. And it's a staff that has a fork grounded at the bottom, and at the top, it's the head of a beast or Set. Set, once again, representing the animal nature, or what some people would call the ego or the flesh. The carnal nature itself, which is not a bad thing. It just should never lead. That Set makes a good general, he makes a good bodyguard, but he does not make a good king. Because that principle of division and anarchy and chaos should never rule. But there are situations where that principle is greatly suited, right? So we look at this principle of Set on this was scepter, and this is their symbol of dominion that the kings would wear, and you'd see other Neteru wearing it. And it's a symbol that says, I have control. I have full control over what used to or could ever oppose me. That my enemy fights for me. that which, it depends on the narrative. If we're talking personally, we could say, I have full authority and full dominion over my enemies. I have mastered my enemies. I have mastered my lower self. I have conquered myself in its lowest state. It's a symbol that says that which may have used to oppress me, I now oppress. That which used to lord over me, I now lord over. So you get a lot of beautiful things when you just look at the imagery. And so Set was used as a symbol of dominion. Another area that Set is used in is in the donkey. The donkey is a representation of Set. So one of the things that I've loved, if you look at the biblical narrative of Yeshua going into town riding on a donkey, theologians usually start to have an aneurysm when it's time to explain why is he on a donkey instead of a horse. And it was because, truthfully, he was representing an Asar principle. He was representing, as Asar, the fullness of God riding on a donkey, or proving his conquest of Set, proving that he's already conquered his enemy, that Satan is not only his footstool, that the enemy isn't just his footstool, but it's his mode of transportation. That goes to show that your enemies, your adversaries, get you where you need to go. I've heard it said before that if comparing life to a video game, that you know you're going in the right place when you find enemies. And should you stop finding enemies, you're lost. So that can apply to life. But this picture of Asar riding on the donkey, later being seen as Yeshua riding on the donkey, is a symbol of absolute dominion. In that I have conquered this unruly thing. This stubborn thing I've conquered. So when it comes to applying this principle of Set, it's all about where to draw distinctions. Set in himself is not an issue. It's where you, in your authority, in your dominion, have placed Set. If Set is in the middle of a family, he's causing division within that family. But if he's outside of the family, he's protecting that family, keeping things away that might cause harm. As I said, a lot of the Neteru also represent physical aspects. I see Set as the immune system, the thing that fights to prevent issues from getting into the body in the first place. On the outermost part of our being, defending us from external invaders. So those are a few of my understandings of the Neter Set. Until next time.